Welcome back to a year of Final Fantasy, and I do think this one is actually the last of the mobile Final Fantasy games. I think. Maybe. Probably not. But anyway, if it's not, I apologize, but this one actually is a fairly good mobile game as far as the Final Fantasies go, and it's one that I'll actually boot up from time to time and play for myself if I have a few minutes to spare, and that is Final Fantasy Mobius, or Mobius Final Fantasy, whatever you want to call it. It is not a crossover between Final Fantasy and Sonic, although that would make an incredibly crazy game. Probably a fairly toxic fan base. But anyway, we're talking about Final Fantasy Mobius as it was released on the iOS and Android. It was released on June 4th of 2015 for Japan, and the rest of the world got the game late in August of 2016. About a year or so later, the game got ported over to Windows on November 1st for 2016 in Japan and February 6, 2017 for the rest of us. So the quality of the game comes from the fact that many people have worked on a legitimate Final Fantasy game before they worked on this. So it does have that kind of stamp of approval, seal of quality thing. It's not just a third party that they kind of threw to somebody and they made it with the Final Fantasy characters. No, this had Final Fantasy people working on it. Now, the director was Matomu Toriyama, and hold on now, it's not the Dragon Ball Z famed Akira Toriyama, just laying that out there. It is Matomu Toriyama, and what he did, well, he's actually worked on a lot of stuff. He's worked on Bahamut Lagoon with the Super Famicom. It was a Super Nintendo game that we didn't get over here. And he went to work on various other Final Fantasy games from different positions, including Final Fantasy 7, 10, 10-2. I know 10-2 is okay, all right. Dissidia, the other Dissidia 012, Duodecim, 13, 13-2, which I think is awesome. Screw everyone that hates 13. But anyway, Heavensward, Stormblood, and a bunch more. So if you're not into the new Final Fantasy stuff, you're probably not going to like this game, but it does have a lot of cool throwbacks to the original Final Fantasy. The producer was Yoshinori Kitase, who is basically a legend at this point. We've mentioned him so many times on this particular channel that you should hopefully know who he is now. The artists were Toshiyuki Idahana, I guess, Toshitaka Matsuda, and Shintaro Takai. Something. I'm sorry, I don't speak Japanese. Anyway, the composer himself musically is Mitsudo Suzuki, and the writers are Kazushiki Nojima and Daisuke Watanabe. That is a lot of Japanese names that I'm pretty sure I completely slaughtered in pronunciation, and I do apologize, but can't sit here apologizing forever. Let's go on into the game itself. It had 2 million players within the first month of the release in Japan, and is one of the most successful Final Fantasy mobile games ever. Honestly, being compared to the other mobile games, it's not that high of a bar to reach, but there are a lot of Final Fantasy mobile games out there. So, you know, I guess it's okay. I guess, maybe. By January 2017, it surpassed 10 million downloads. That is not 10 million players, just to, you know, make that point. It's 10 million downloads. And this is actually just for mobile. Remember, it is released on Steam as well, and using the completely unofficial Steam Spy page, there seems to be about 700,000 players that have this game. So a bit under 750,000, you know, add on to that 10 million plus however many have downloaded it since January 2017 on mobile. It's got a lot of players, or at least it has a lot of people that were interested at one point. It's obviously not that high of daily players. In fact, for Steam, the daily player count was only like 30,000 or something, which is still much more than Battleborn. Oh, I'm sorry, Battleborn, but it's so sad, Battleborn. Anyway, this game is much in the style of a modern Final Fantasy game. Like I said, with its graphics, we follow Wol, W-O-L, who has a blank job, which is, oh my god, it's so meta, alright? Who arrives in the land of Palamecia, which has been uttered in a few Final Fantasy games. And he has, get this, amnesia, of course, and you might expect during your adventures you're going to overcome these, you know, obstacles, you're going to figure out your past, you're going to be part of a great prophecy and all of that. And it's very convenient being named the Warrior of Light, because his name is Wol, W-O-L, which is, you know, short for Warrior of Light. Anyway, in this case, the main character, he begins as a sarcastic, slightly narcissistic character and continues on his quests for the simple fact that, hey, you know, it's something to do and he's got to figure out who he is and all of that. Little bits of information do eventually fill out the blanks in his head, and that's the story of Wol. Like, that name is super weird to me. Alright, Wol can also change his jobs, as you might expect or hope in a Final Fantasy game. He has these different job cards that you can equip. There's quite a few jobs in this game as well. And those are some nods to other, you know, characters in the series, call back to other games, or actually some newer jobs in here that we've like gotten a hint of with, let's say, Final Fantasy 14, like the Scholar, although I think the Scholar's been other games, but anyway, I digress. I'll quickly list off the jobs here. They're kind of under these different sets, like Warrior, Mage, that kind of thing. So for the Warrior jobs, we have the Onion Knight, Warrior, like the actual Warrior fighter class, I guess. We have the Knight, the Dark Knight, Samurai, Dragoon, Paladin, and finally Berserker. Under mages, we have our Apprentice Mage. We have just a mage, not any colored mages, just mage. Then we have White Mage, obviously Black Mage, obviously Red Mage, Scholar, and Occultist. Now, I'm not sure if Occultist was in another game. I want to say that it was in one of the Final Fantasy Tactics games, but I could be wrong. That's me going off my memory. Anyway, Ranger types. We have the Neophyte Ranger, which is a super weird name. Ranger, Hunter, Thief, Assassin, Dancer, Viking, and Rogue. Now, I don't really know what's different between a Viking and a Berserker, because those seem like they would kind of, overlap. But anyway, we do have that. We have the Viking. And we also have a Monk type of class. There's not but just a few of these different, monk types in here. We have the trainee monk, obviously, then the regular monk, and then the weirdest of all of the things, oddly, it's a Moogle mascot type of monk. I don't really know what to do with that information, and now you have it, and you probably don't know what to do with it either. Anyway, we also have legendary classes here, or jobs, or whatever you want to call them. We have the actual Warrior of Light attire that you can equip. The Warrior of Light being like in Final Fantasy Dissidia, that kind of like dual horned character. We also have the Heretic Knight, which could only be depicting Cecil as the Dark Knight. We also have Cloud's attire, Sephiroth's attire, Squall's, Tidus's lightning, and finally, from out of nowhere, we have the Prince of Laurasia. And what in the hell, what even is that? Well, it's super weird because it's the hero of Dragon Quest II of all things. That's crazy, right? We're actually going to talk just a little bit here in a second about the crossovers of this game. And also what we have here as well is known as Ultimate Heroes, which actually just come full, full sail over here. You can be Cloud Strife, you can be Sephiroth, and you can be Lightning, just wholesale, not even their, their gear or anything. It's just that is the character. Wall himself has appeared in a few other games, Wall the actual character has appeared in other mobile games. This is really weird because you start getting crossovers of crossover games, and it's Anyway, he's appeared in Theater Rhythm Final Fantasy All-Star Carnival, he's appeared in Final Fantasy Record Keeper and Pictologica, which we've actually talked about a little bit before. In fact, that was one of the first games I ever talked about, I think. So the game here was created with the intention of being on par with the look and style of the Final Fantasy games of modern age, but on a mobile phone. That's either going to completely turn you off of it, or, you'll be excited to play it. So it is a free-to-play game, like I mentioned, and you can expect the free-to-play sensibilities of it, actions on a cooldown timer, that kind of thing. You can perform, whenever you're battling, which is a lot of what this game is. You're going to perform your standard fighting with your weapon, that kind of thing. And as you fight, you're going to get these different elemental runes, or just these elemental things that you can use for special actions. I don't know, let's say you got ice elemental abilities and you can summon Shiva with that, things like that. The game actually does have a little bit of, I guess, exploration, if you want to call it that. The combat is flashy but simple, kind of. I mean, you see this a lot with mobile games. These free-to-play games, it's all fireworks and everything. It's insane. It's diabetes for your eyes, but it's really not that complicated underneath. So like I said, the game is being constantly updated, and as this video is being released on October 19th, 2017, there have been a bunch of different collaboration events kind of promoting other games that has happened as well. In fact, there have been collaboration events crossover with Record Keeper, Final Fantasy Record Keeper, and then there have been collaboration events with full games like Final Fantasy Type 0, Final Fantasy 7 Remake, kind of a thing to show that off, Final Fantasy 12, Final Fantasy 13, still like 13, and Dragon Quest, as mentioned before, with that special Laurasia job. And as of this date of this video, it was announced a few days ago, in fact 4 days ago, that a major event will take place in Final Fantasy Mobius that will tell the story of Tidus and his events that happened to him in between Final Fantasy X and X-2. And yes, I call him Tidus, not Tidus, because that name is stupid. I'm sorry. This is actually why I wanted to talk about Mobius here in this Final Fantasy X month. This is a huge announcement, this crossover with 10, because we finally get to figure out what happened after 10, between 10 and 10-2. We did get that kind of interlude cutscene thing whenever they released the 10 remasters, but this is going to give us that other side that we didn't see with Tidus. So if you're interested in it, give it a try. Though this Final Fantasy X event is only announced for Japan at this point, certainly we're going to get it next year sometime, probably sooner rather than later. And if that's something that interests you, hey, give it a go. It's free, why not? And it may be something that you enjoy a bunch. And I'll leave it there. So until next time, Crystal Warrior, keep on gaming.